Hello and welcome back to Laz Unleashed. Today's video is going to be my preview of the UFC 300 card and basically going through the fights, what I think might happen, and the picks that I've got for this incredible card. So just to kick off, just talking about the card in general, I just want to sort of talk to all the people who are slating this card because, frankly, I think they're being quite unfairly negative towards this card because this card is absolutely incredible. If you just look, I mean, there was a fight, a statistic that came out on the TNT Sports thing that was said something like there's been 110 champions across the UFC in the however many years, in the 30 years it's been going, and 10% of them, so of those 110 fighters, 10% of them are fighting on UFC 300, past and present, obviously not all present champions. And I think when you take a step back and you think about it like that, you just look at this card and you go, my goodness, like it is stacked. The first fight is Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt, which is just insane. Think about that, two former champions in their own weight divisions, and they're still doing things. Cody might be little bit out of it, a little bit behind, but Figueiredo's only sort of just really lost the belt in the featherweight division. So this card is just incredibly stacked, and I think it's very unfair, having seen some of the comments. I get the angle that there is no star name on here. There is no Conor McGregor. There is no John Jones. So I understand from that aspect we're not getting one incredible headline figure, but you kind of feel that if a name like that would be on a card like this, you might suffer a bit in the lower ranks of the fights in the prelims, in the early prelims. But I can't fault this card really. Um, I've got no problems with anything on it. I think it's a fantastic thing. Would I like to have seen something like Jones versus Stipe on this one? Yeah, probably. Would I like to have seen I don't know, Leon against Kamzat? Maybe. But these things, there's other things. Ramadan's going on. I know that's why Kamzat and Islam aren't fighting. Camps to turn around for fights. These things are so meticulously organised, and you have to understand that it takes a lot to put together a fight and to make it work. And I think what we've got here is just an incredible card that is probably the best card I've ever seen in my life, in my time watching the UFC. So with that, going to crack on and go fight by fight and sort of tell you my thoughts on it, about the fighters and what I think is going to happen. So to kick off with the main event, we've got Alex Pereira against Jamahal Hill. Now this is going to be really interesting, this one, because I think coming into this fight, Alex Pereira is the favourite, and the star power that he's built for himself over the last year or so has been incredible, because he's come back and he's beaten Adesanya. He got knocked out by Adesanya as well. So this rise and fall, he's always keeping the audiences entertained and on their feet. He's got incredible power. He's fought the best. But one interesting thing is that he's been knocked out before. We know this from that fight with Izzy. And this is where I think Jamahal Hill could actually capitalise on this. Jamahal has got really good hands, and he's also fought some really tough opponents to get to the stage he's in now in this title fight. And I think Alex Pereira is, I don't know if this will affect him mentally, but from the outside looking in, it looks like Alex Pereira is now, I don't want to say all about the glitz and glamour because that's not fair, but his stock, his world stock has risen. Everyone wants to interview him. Everyone wants videos and pictures with him. You can see, he's on all the channels doing these interviews, and you wonder if his fame level has risen now, compared to what it was before coming into the UFC in his first few fights. So I wonder if all the attention on him is going to be a downfall for him, and I wonder if Hill is looking at this opportunity to make a point, to say, I was the champ before I vacated my belt for the injury, so you're coming to try against me. Essentially, I know it doesn't work like that, but that's how Hill could be looking at this. And I think Hill probably thinks that a lot of people are sleeping on him and don't want him, because he's been a bit on social media. He's been a bit iffy, isn't he? He's been to and fro with some fans quite a lot, and yeah, fans aren't really into Hill at the moment, but I wonder if he's going to use this to his advantage and try and cause a massive upset tonight. The thing is, his hands are great, and he's fighting an already great fighter with great hands. Now, Alex Pereira's greatness has already been established. He's a two divisional world champ. But if Hill can remain really calm, really composed, and if he can see this as an opportunity of an underdog, then I think he could win. So I'm actually going for a shock victory here, which will be Jamahal Hill by TKO. I don't really fancy putting a round on it because I can't I think anything could happen in this fight. But I really think that Hill is sort of silently, I think he's the dark horse in this matchup, and he's silently sitting there thinking, all I've got to do is, make sure Alex doesn't hit me and then find my space to just lay that proper hard hit where he puts Alex to sleep. So I'm going for Jamahal Hill by TKO and new champion on Saturday night, so I can't wait for that. The co-main event, Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan, and this is really interesting because Zhang Weili is China's poster girl in the UFC, and this is more than deserved. She's just fought an incredible host of fights with finishes, submissions, fight of the year contenders. She's just always an exciting prospect to watch when you see her on the card. Whenever you see Zhang Weili's name, I think you think that's going to be a great fight. She's been on a great run in terms of wins. She's always exciting, which I mentioned. But the other thing is that she's so strong in terms of she's got so many skills. She can grapple, she can do the wrestling, she can do the jiu-jitsu. She's also got incredible hands as well and great striking. We saw that in the fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So I think the thoughts are all good coming in for Zhang Weili, but Yan Xiaonan now, she has been overshadowed by Zhang Weili. She was actually in the UFC as I think she was China's first UFC female fighter. She was in there before Zhang Weili, but her fights were a little more boring. They were a little uninteresting. She sort of saw her way through some decisions, and they were some good performances, and she's gotten the wins, but you still don't really have that kind of star quality and power that Zhang brought when she was fighting. So I wonder if Yan Xiaonan here is going to try and sort of get back at Zhang for stealing the thunder and being like, hold on, I came here first. This is my thing. I'm the Chinese UFC poster girl, and you've taken it from me. So I wonder if this is going to give Yan Xiaonan a bit of inspiration. One thing certain though is that UFC have not just done this to put China versus China and make the main event interesting. It's important to know that Yan Xiaonan deserves to be here. She's fought her way here and she deserves to be in this title fight. Now, this is the co-main event of UFC 300, and this is a massive opportunity for Yan Xiaonan. This is the fight of her life. And I think this could be a massive factor in terms of her turning up and performing on Saturday. Zhang, we know she's done it before. We know she steps up in these big occasions and she can perform as well. So I don't think there's any worry about Zhang turning up. But if Yan turns up and gives her best and puts in the motivation, this is the fight of my life, then she could frustrate Weili if she kind of sees the fight out, controls the distance and, the range and all that stuff. So it's a massive, massive battle of China, which I can't wait to watch. However, despite everything I said, about Yan and her inspiration, I still don't see Zhang Weili losing this fight in an event that's so big and so crucial for her and something that was going to mean so much to her and her legacy. I was swaying towards. I thought we might get a bit of an upset with a Yan decision, but I don't see how it's just a five round co-main event. I don't see if Yan Xiaonan is winning by 3 rounds. I don't see how Zhang doesn't turn something around to make a change because she's too good. So with that in mind, I'm going for Weili Zhang by TKO in the second fight. So next up, we have the BMF title between Max Holloway and Justin Gaethje, which promises to be an absolute, well, it should be fight of the night, but I think I might have a little expectation that it becomes fight of the year because it's just going to be hands flying, blood on the canvas. It's going to be incredible. So Justin Gaethje, obviously, we know him as the highlight reel because he's produced so many incredible moments for us and through the UFC. So much power in his hands, so much, even his kicking as well. His kicking abilities improved so much over the last few fights. We know he can perform, and we know that he has the power in his hands to stop anyone. He's got the wrestling as well, but he very rarely uses it. Now he's coming up against Max Holloway, so as we all know, one of the best featherweights to have ever graced the UFC. But he's also one of the best boxers in the UFC, and we saw that in his performance against Calvin Kattar, where he just completely dismantled him. It was a boxing clinic for 5 rounds. It was tough to watch. I'm sure most of you remember that. The question I have here is, can Holloway keep Gaethje at a distance and outbox him? And I think the answer is no. But if Holloway can do that, Holloway's fantastic at boxing and maintaining the distance and sort of keeping the jab out to sort of keep his opponents where he wants them. But I'm just not seeing any of that trouble Gaethje enough to make Gaethje go, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to go into that fight. I'm not going to go into that phone box area with you. I just don't see how Holloway can do this for 5 rounds. So some points to note. Holloway always looks better at featherweight. He's fought at lightweight before against Dustin Poirier, and you do wonder if the already established lightweights are too heavy for him in this particular instance, in the sense of are they just that much bigger? Do they have more muscle mass? Um, but Holloway is so tough. He's never been knocked down or out. But that's the question. Can Justin Gaethje be the man to do that? Because if anyone can do that, it's going to be Justin Gaethje. We saw what he did to Tony Ferguson, literally almost, as good as retired Tony Ferguson in that fight. And I have a strange feeling that the same thing is going to happen here. Because I think Gaethje is going to be too big, too powerful, and just have too much power in his hands and feet to outdo Holloway's boxing. So I'm going for Justin Gaethje by TKO. Again, I'm not going to predict the round, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happened in like round 4. If Holloway's trying to keep him at arm's length and keep him away, but every now and then Gaethje's just swinging with massive hooks, massive uppercuts, just doing the complete and total damage on Holloway. So I see Justin Gaethje by TKO in the second half of the fight. And I think this could be fight of the year. So if we make it to round 4, I can imagine those first 3 rounds being just absolute carnage. And I cannot wait for it. So next up is the really interesting matchup between Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan. Now, Tsarukyan obviously is this young up-and-comer. We've got these young fighters coming through in the lightweight division. You've got your Fizieves, a few others as well. Can't remember off the top of my head, but Tsarukyan is one of them. He's a multifaceted fighter and can do pretty much anything to a really good extent. He can strike, he can wrestle, he's got some jiu-jitsu. So this is really interesting because Charles, we know, is a specialist at jiu-jitsu and submissions, but his striking's okay, isn't it? But we haven't seen it sort of, what we've seen his striking do is knock people down and then him jump straight into a submission. Now, from what I've seen, Charles Oliveira's last few fights, I just haven't been overly impressed with what we've seen. And we know that, I know he's won, I think he beat Dariush, didn't he? But his performances against Makhachev, I didn't feel were that impressive. And we can credit a lot of that to Makhachev because obviously he's the champ, he's beaten him, and we know that he's so good that he was better than Charles that night. But I just haven't been overly, what I've seen or what I've been told about Charles Oliveira in his early, this revival, because he had quite a bad run of losses up until a couple of years ago, and then he's kind of revitalized himself. Now, of that new kind of revitalized run, the last couple of fights, I just haven't really seen what everyone else seems to see. And this might be my ignorance because I don't, I've done a bit of MMA, but nothing by any means substantial compared to these guys. Or even some fans who do like lots of MMA themselves, but I just haven't seen anything. So it's quite a difficult one because, Charles Oliveira's got so much skill on the ground, but he's susceptible to a strike. We've seen a strike put him down and then, be jumped on and wrestled on. The new Charles, as in the last couple of fights, I'm not sure if he's going to be able to stand up against these new up-and-coming lightweights. But the old Charles, as in the old version of this new version, if you like, that I think he could stand with Tsarukyan. So, if on Saturday we get the old version of Charles, then I think he has a massive chance of matching Tsarukyan in the striking, maybe getting a strike off and then getting Tsarukyan down and submitting. But if it's the latest Oliveira that we've seen that I haven't been overly impressed with, then I think Tsarukyan could frustrate him. Keep the fight at a distance, maybe work in a takedown, but then it becomes Oliveira's world. So I'm really unsure. So what I've gone for is something that I don't think a lot of people will have gone for or will have liked to happen, but I do see it as the frustrating result, and I think we could get Tsarukyan by decision. I think he could do enough and keep Charles at bay. Charles may keep trying to go takedowns, Tsarukyan may defend them, and I just see him frustrating Charles, and keep jabbing, keep just throwing hands, causing some damage. So yeah, so I think Tsarukyan by decision. So that's going to be an interesting one. I'd love Oliveira to come back and get like a submission victory. That would be really cool, but I just don't see it. I see it going this way. Now the fight that everyone, including myself, doesn't really care for, Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage. I just have to say something. I feel like it's quite, yeah, it's a little wrong that this fight is where it is. If anything, I think this fight should open up the whole card. UFC and Dana White obviously have a thing for Bo Nickel. They think he's going to be the new star, and they're doing this by putting him as the first fight on the main card. Now, again, with Bo Nickel, nothing has overly impressed me. He's fought some good opponents, but I don't think anything, with his record coming in and what everyone knew or thought they knew about him before he come to the UFC. I just haven't seen anything that's made me go, yep, this is it. This is the next superstar. Great wrestler, obviously the new UFC poster boy. He should get the win against Brundage, but some people are saying this is Nickal's first proper test against Cody Brundage, but I just don't see Brundage providing any sort of resistance. It's kind of like Paddy Pimblett's first fight and Sean O'Malley's first couple as well. You wouldn't say their opponents were easy, but that they should be able to deal with them. And in the same way, I think Bo Nickel deals with Cody Brundage here. So I'm going Bo Nickel by KO. Yeah, that's my decision. I think first round as well. But so now we go to the prelims and the prelim headliner, which is Jiri Prochazka versus Rakic. Now this is going to be really interesting because Jiri has a point to prove. He wants to come and avenge his loss of the belt at light heavyweight, which he did against Pereira. Jiri is one of my favourite fighters because he's so unorthodox and so unusual but well-rounded, and I love this thing that he lives vicariously by the samurai code, and he's a quite unique specimen, and I'm a massive fan of his, so I really hope he gets the win. He'll have a point to prove, like I said, because he's come back from the injury and lost his belt. Now you might say that is a bit of ring rust there. Was Alex Pereira too good, or was Jiri? Did he need a warm up fight to come and get himself ready to go straight back into a title fight? Now the same actually could be said for Rakic, who's been out for 23 months because in May 2022 he injured himself. I think did he tear an ACL against Blakovic. So this is almost 2 years out. So this is a massive test for Rakic to see if he is at where we thought he was before, because he's great at controlling fights, maintaining the range and the distance and sort of grinding out a decision. We've seen him do it a few times. Now, Rakic may control it and he may dictate the tempo and where the fight goes and whether it stays, on the feet. But I just don't see Jiri Prochazka not finding a way through. So my decision I think Prochazka is going to knock him down, and then I think he's going to jump on him and sub him. So I've got Jiri Prochazka by submission for this fight. So next up is Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain Sterling. So this is going to be a really interesting fight because you've got Aljamain Sterling's first fight at featherweight, and naturally the questions come in: is he too small for it? Is this going to be the right division for him? And this is where we're going to find out. You've got Calvin Kattar, who's a fantastic boxer and striker, but we say he is because we know he is. But then we also go back and look at the Max Holloway fight and saw that someone with incredible boxing really pieced him up. So is Aljamain as good a boxer as Holloway? Definitely not. Could he have done training enough to find a way to outbox Kattar? It's possible. Also, in Calvin Kattar's last fight, he lost, didn't he, by the leg kick from Arnold Allen that I think it kind of incapacitated him. I don't know if it was like one of those freak injuries, because Allen's kick did do damage, but you do feel like one of the nerves or something gave out, which is why he just collapsed. So he's got to bounce back as well from a. It's not an embarrassing loss, of course, but it's definitely not how he would have wanted it to go. And it wasn't like it was a 2.5 rounds of excitement and then he just got caught at the end. It was really, the start of round two was quite unfortunate because I saw quite a good fight unraveling there. With Sterling, we know that he's great at grappling and the wrestling, but is his striking good enough for Kattar to match that? Because, as I said, we know Kattar's a great boxer. I'm also a massive fan of Aljamain Sterling, but I think that what we will see here is I think Kattar will be too big for Sterling. I don't think he'll be able to get him down. I think Kattar will keep the distance, maintain the range, just throw the jab consistently. and just do damage to Aljamain Sterling. So I am going for Calvin Kattar decision. Because, yeah, like I said, I think it will just be too much for Aljamain Sterling. What I'll do at the end as well is I'll go through the fights and I'll tell you what I want, because what I think is going to happen might not always be what I want to happen. So now the very exciting introduction to the UFC for Kayla Harrison, who's taking on Holly Holm in her debut fight for the UFC. There's loads of questions coming in about Kayla Harrison, especially with the weight cut. You know, is she going to be able to go from 155 down to 135 healthily and in a way that she can keep her fitness, her strength, her body mass ready for this fight? One other thing that we need to identify about Kayla Harrison is she most definitely hasn't faced the level of opposition that Holly Holm has in her career. So does Kayla Harrison, you know, instinctively think she's better than she is because she's fought, you know, a smaller or a less caliber of opponent? I think that's going to be a part to play. I think Kayla may be very confident coming in, and maybe Holm on the other side will just be like, you haven't faced anyone like I've faced, so I've got your number. So we'll see. Holly Holm, obviously in the habit of beating legends. You know, she beat Ronda Rousey, and she knows what to do. She's got great boxing. And I think I read somewhere her average fight time is something like, is it 14 minutes? So we know that she's a long distance fighter. She's not going to go out and get the finish. Holly Holm's probably too tall and too skinny to go out and get a finish. She probably doesn't have that power, or certainly not like she used to. So she's always grinding out, trying to box the opponent. Now, if Kayla Harrison can wrestle her and get Holly down to the ground, then we might be in Kayla Harrison's world. But Holly Holm has a great takedown defense as well. So that's another important thing to note. The next most important question is Holly Holm past her best? Because Kayla Harrison still looks good. She's still at a good age where, you know, she's able to compete with the best in PFL. Excuse me. But is Holly Holm still at her best? I think her last few performances have been a bit lackluster, been a bit flat. We haven't seen the best of her. But it's going to be really interesting. I think Holly Holm and her experience is probably going to spoil Kayla Harrison's welcome party to the UFC. So because of that, I'm going for Holly Holm by decision. I think she'll just overwhelm Harrison in the stand-up and be too much for her. I don't think Harrison will be able to get her down. So I think this is Holly Holm's fight. So next up, Sodiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopes. Now this is going to be a crazy fight because Sodiq Yusuff is a great striker. I think it's a great opponent for Lopes as well, because we know Lopes loves a submission, loves trying to get, you know, these crazy submission attempts. But last time out, we saw Sodiq Yusuff gas quite quickly, and he'd given all he had in the first round or so, and he wasn't able to maintain that pace and keep up with that with the fight that he was fighting. He's a fast starter and he likes to get his work done. So my thinking here is that if Yusuff can keep and maintain the energy, then he might be able to outbox Lopes, keep it standing, keep him at range, keep the jab going, and win by decision. But if Yusuff gasses again and expends all his energy in the first two rounds, I think it opens up the world for Diego Lopes to come in and jump on any tiredness he may see and get Yusuff to the ground and submit him. So my head tells me that Yusuff is going to win by decision, but my heart tells me that it's UFC 300. We're expecting something big. Lopes always shows up, so I'm going to go for Lopes by submission for this one, because I think Sodiq, the opportunity, the event might get to him, and he might again go very hard in the first round, and I think Lopes might just jump on that and get the submission. So yeah, that's an incredible fight. Can't wait. But also incredible is the next one, which is Jalin Turner and Renato Moicano. So Jalin Turner is massive. He's like a huge, was he like 6'6" or something? He's so big and he's so agile and he's great with his hands. And he's got such a ridiculously long reach that no one can get close to him. He's 6'2" in his last 8 fights. But the 2 losses have been split decisions. So it's showing us that he's always been in the fight, and whether he's gotten a finish or won by a decision or lost by a split decision, he's always there competing. Now, the one thing I see on the other side is Renato Moicano. We've seen him over his last couple of fights take a lot of damage. A lot. But he's been, if I remember correctly, he's faced opponents that They haven't been overall sort of like strikers or much bigger than him. My thinking is that if Turner can keep his reach and keep Moicano at length and at distance, then I think he'll be able to piece him up and do a lot of damage. And we might even get like a doctor stoppage. So if Turner can control the distance and manage his striking, then I think he's going to overwhelm Moicano to a point that there'll be a stoppage, or the doctor stops it. But I also don't think Turner's going to be reckless and jump him where he doesn't need to. So because of that, I'm going for Turner by TKO. That's my pick for that one. So now Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. Now we know that Andrade, she is just a little powerhouse. She's full of power, aggression, speed, and precision. And whilst Rodriguez is good at controlling clinches and doing damage there, I don't know if Andrade's going to be able to. I don't know if she's going to be able to keep Andrade against the cage. It's quite an intriguing fight, and I'd sort of expect it to be like a co-main event on like a fight night or something. Maybe even like a main event at the Apex. But they're both strikers, and both their striking statistics are quite similar in terms of their accuracy in the defense. But Jessica Andrade, I just see her way more forthcoming, way more aggressive. I think she's going to get in her face, maybe quite early on. So my pick is Jessica Andrade by TKO. So the next fight we have is Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. And this is actually one that I don't want to analyse because I just want to enjoy it. We've got these two guys who you'd probably say they're past, in terms of age, they're probably past their physical peak. But some of the stuff we've seen from Bobby Green recently has been really impressive, and Jim Miller just been on a little tear up as well. Both guys have faced all kinds of opponents, and so it shouldn't be surprised with what the other can bring to the party on Saturday. I don't mind either of them. I quite like Bobby Green as a character, as a personality, so I'd be happy if he gets the win. But I think secretly everyone here wants Jim Miller to win, to keep his streak going of fighting, and I think winning at 100, UFC 200, UFC 300. So I am going to follow my heart, and I don't know how or where. Like I said, I'm not even analysing who can do what and who's good at what. I just think that Jim Miller will get a TKO at some point in the fight. And hopefully, yeah, it would be so poetic, wouldn't it, for that to happen and to kick off sort of. I know we've got one fight before, but to kick off the UFC 300 night like that. So on to the last fight of this video, but the first fight of the whole event: Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Now this is really interesting because Deiveson Figueiredo looked pretty good in his last fight, which was his first fight at bantamweight. However, he did gas a little bit towards the end of the fight, and if Cody Garbrandt can keep Figueiredo from landing with those power shots that Figueiredo is so known and renowned and good at, then I think he could take this to the later round and potentially get a finish. We know that Garbrandt's got great hands. You know, that knockout of Assunção was crazy, but Cody Garbrandt himself seems to have a massive glass chin, and that's meant with no disrespect, but he has taken quite a few shots throughout his career, and over his last few fights we've seen him take quite big hits and not really get through them. So I think, are they roughly the same age? I'm not sure, I didn't look that up, but despite Figueiredo's age, he just needs to calm down. Figueiredo, he needs to not go so crazy in his first two rounds, because he always does that and he always seems to gas as the fight goes on. The key to him winning this is him be sensible with his cardio. If he can manage his gas tank and be careful with strikes and not throw anything reckless that Garbrandt can come back and get him, then he could be very precise and he could actually find Garbrandt's chin. So this is a really incredible, it's an incredible way to kick off the whole night. And it's actually one of the hardest for me to pick, because Figueiredo's got more weight, he's got more power, but he needs to land cleanly. Cody can't afford to be landed on, so it's a very tough one. But I think my head is saying that Figueiredo has a point to prove, being at bantamweight, he is on the title run. He's trying to get a title. He wants to have belts in two divisions, obviously not simultaneously anymore, but he wants to have that achievement. Garbrandt, I'm not seeing or even feeling the same vision. I think Garbrandt might be past champ status, whereas Figueiredo still feels he has it. And I feel that if that's what it comes down to, a battle of wills and who wants it more, I could see Figueiredo managing his gas tank, being careful with the strikes, but just unleashing, knocking Garbrandt down, ground and pound. So I'm going with Deiveson Figueiredo TKO, and that is it for my picks of what I think is going to happen. Now I'm going to do very quickly, no more analysis, but my picks of what I want to happen. So I would like Figueiredo to win. Love Jim Miller to win. Want Jessica Andrade to win. Oh, I like them both, and Moicano is a bit of a character, so I'd actually say I would like Moicano to win. I'm quite a big fan of Sodiq Yusuff, but Diego Lopes has come in, and he's just sort of, every time I watch him fight, he just makes me smile. So, in the effort that it is UFC 300, and it's meant to be a big event and fun, I want Diego Lopes to win. Now, I think it would be really interesting. I'd like Kayla Harrison to win because I think that just brings a bit of excitement and a bit of new blood to the women's divisions. And it might be a new bogeyman. You know, we've seen Holm, Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, Valentina Shevchenko, Amanda Nunes, all these big female personalities in the UFC female divisions. And I think we need more. And if Kayla Harrison can come and do a number on Holm, then that's going to be another name and another bunch of potential fights we might see. We might see her going with Miesha. We might see her fight Valentina. It would be really interesting, and I think it would open up a lot of possibilities for the UFC's female divisions. So I'd like Kayla Harrison to win that. I'm an Aljamain Sterling fan. I think he's really, really good at everything, and he's just a fantastic fighter. So I'd like Sterling to win. I'm a Jiri Prochazka fan, so that's Jiri to win. I'm just going to say it, just to upset. I always fancy an underdog, so to upset the odds and to upset what everyone else thinks is going to happen, I'd like to see Cody Brundage get the win. This is a tough one because I've got nothing against Oliveira, and I don't have any particular love for Tsarukyan, but I've got to weigh up whether I want the old guard to carry on winning, the Dustin Poirier against Saint-Denis, Oliveira against Tsarukyan, Gaethje against Fiziev. Do we want these older guys to still have them a monopoly on the top, or do we want the young and up and comers to come through? I think if Oliveira wins, it does a lot for the picture at the top of the lightweight division, including a potential rematch with Makhachev. So I think I'd like Charles Oliveira to win. Wow. I mean, Gaethje v Holloway. Everyone loves Max Holloway, but Gaethje, he is just. I mean, he is the human highlight reel, isn't he? And he's of a different breed. That power in his hands. But at the same time, if Max Holloway does something, you don't know what he can do at lightweight, and if he'd stay up there. So just like the Kayla Harrison one, I would like Max Holloway to win, just to throw a bit of difference into the lightweight division and see if he can go up on a run as well. The next one, the co-main event, it would be great to have a little upset, and if this could be the start of a great rivalry. If Xiaonan wins on Saturday, there'll have to be a rematch, and if Zhang wins that one, then there'll be a third rematch. I just always fancy an underdog, and I always enjoy when someone who wasn't expected to win does win. Zhang's had her time. She's had time as a champion. She's had time being the best female fighter in the world. She's probably still there, probably still has that accolade. But again, the scenes, if Yan Xiaonan wins, would just be incredible. So, as long as it's not boring, I would like Yan Xiaonan to win. Just to upset the odds a bit. I don't know, it's going to be exciting. And again, the main event, I mean, everyone likes Alex Pereira, and a lot of people don't like Jamahal Hill. So they're basing it on personalities and how these people act and treat others outside the octagon. I don't want to do that. I want to sort of look at them as fighters. And if Pereira wins this, he's one fight away from potentially trying 3 belts going up to heavyweight, although there's no way. My favourite fighter, Tom Aspinall, I don't think Pereira gets anywhere near him or touches him. But he's daring to be great. And it's just so interesting this fight. I was a big Izzy fan a few years ago, so when Alex came in, I was very much anti-Alex. But seeing what he's done since he's come in has been nothing short of like incredibly impressive. He's up there, isn't he, now with the pound for pound fighters? But at the same time, I just like that Jamahal Hill doesn't really give a toss about anything or anyone, and he's just going to do his own thing. But the person I like best, including their fighting style, is probably Alex Pereira. So I want Alex Pereira to win on Saturday night. So actually, half of these have gone against what I think is going to happen, but obviously just gone into what I want to happen. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you for joining me for this little preview of UFC 300. I'll probably do a little review as well afterwards when it's all said and done, maybe like on Sunday or Monday or something. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoy UFC 300. It's going to be absolutely nuts. And for those naysayers who don't like the card, just enjoy it. I mean, look at all of these fights and all of these names and all of the talent on this card. Just because there's no Conor McGregor or John Jones or Khamzat or Leon Edwards, this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Look, 3 title fights with names that everyone wants to see on any pay-per-view numbered card, and with the first fight being Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Unheard of. That's a co-main event, or maybe that's a co-main event on a pay-per-view numbered card. Maybe not that high, maybe like the third fight or something, but that's such a good fight, and this is kicking off the whole night. So UFC 300 is going to be unbelievable. Dana's already said there's more money for bonuses, so people are going to be fighting their hearts out to try and get a bit of extra cash. And on top of that, everyone who's going out there is going to be performing in front of millions of people. And any highlight that comes out will be on YouTube instantly, a few hours after it happens. Each fighter here has a chance to sort of put themselves into the limelight with a special showing and a special performance. And because of that, that's what makes this card so special. And I've never seen anything like it in terms of a card this stacked. So completely disagree with those saying that this is worse than 299 or 298. This is a fantastic card. I will be staying up most likely until about 7 in the morning for it, because obviously we're over in the UK, so just got to deal with it. But this is what I do for cards that give me this much excitement. So hopefully, all the performances and exciting turn of events we're hoping to happen will happen. But we'll talk more about it in the UFC 300 review. So it's Friday. The fights are in one day. So enjoy it, everyone. Enjoy UFC 300 and come back for the review. So take care, and I'll see you very, very soon.